ya bonus we ngu. In that topic the disciplining our children in the diaspora. Into Mr. Bibs who say Colana 30 lashes near the bomb be wana. And I say, yeah, in the Bible so canon now. Spare the rod and spoil the child. The good thing is nipa yen ni bedi jumedie or so ya sorry penyin. And I was also a quadruple when it comes to counseling, into psychiatry and mental health. Into another be my atiasia, baby, or the Bible better to know that to tune, so the Quran so better to know that to tune. So the nanum so dear so better to know that to tune afidie. Yako yenim. Bansa na yebe kona afidie ye did me no asha so no yebe pese yebe da aboa for maso yasne. Ase na ye de jumede no aba. Yedi kan ye feel good services in the feel good service on one yedi ba bedi eni ba bedi twedie enti no sa ope adwene mo mpomode anim de anase bia emu yarewa ahodo kwan abesifa asana na pe feel good services e cha kwan e wo feelgoodservices@gmail.com. Ebiom feel good say ye hwehwe ya adwene mu na ye hwe ya pomode mu no na ye sa so hwe bebia ye betimi de yeti ato na sa wonya bebi papa de utito a eno ene mawo kwan ema wotimi adwene yie eno ne ma kwan ema wotimi eye woni mama ne sipi esita ne sente no se wabo niema bi bede ama oton ama wiase afa na nyina titiro Ganafo our locations me no baku opoko ase ele baku so East Legon Hills there no a nice Airbnb a chese a wo hwe fidie no so a foni ne etwa spedede sa wotie so dia na me catch say per number in from 513-372-5758 and as a Ghana number near +233-208-149504 or say opa asase and I say bia opa so customize odan crampo and I say bia apartment ni na pa to crampo and I say bia aye Airbnb a omobenye bi ama kama ai ntino so wo hwa ebiom na meka no na da fide no so a say etwa spedede no ebiom Happy Glow GH also has seen a over a year near almost say a bar say obetwichu na say and I say one san ho more any bibia not just say beauty cosmetics are Pomechira Kwan wa Ashoman Estate 20 meters away from the community hospital right opposite Veggies and Grill. Our number is +233-594-710391. Dane da onam honam no nyema bebre na ekoso ewo wediem sa so na nyema bebre na ekoso wo ya brabom enti no me kan for Oswald Wellness ama edi wabusuafo nyina se titire omom wo Maryland anase Ohio no ohonom ye license wo hwehwe mechira kwan for mo number ine from 513-268-2740 say a year family nurse practitioner na hwehwe anase bia IV hydration anase primary care na ope. And I say weight loss, weight management, especially there edi akotene or yasim in there no. Nti sa ope I know dia pomichira kwa na fe de oni omo ene nkita ho na bibia enye kama. Nye di okra na say the chat war. I mean before say beba the chat war no producer ba beba kono answer ya. Okay before say you be the chat war no. Tata send and also yasne ye main sponsor o my so yasne edi jumede ebra so ope kwan abesane sika kofie so hwese no de wi ama bom green na that is a tata send na me bleed me moja ye green and ye red moja nka say ye green e ba bonti na da red and abeboa so pepepe tata says e kwa app store na say o Google Play Store na download the app no e fast e secure that's also reliable. Oh yeah, now send this on your first transaction or bet you $15. I feel the idea I made a buffer for crampo to say a dutrim crampo and they say would download the app and I say would put the promo code PK P-KAY and I say HRE Shema Mr. Frame Mammy home no mammy prove na mianga some pet a mobile tobacco Eddie Abro and I say African restaurant be be offering no sham 1 mile or first meal with your cash account on top of the $15 now when you know in there now no you start to call African restaurants that will command Cincinnati teacher any adepa restaurant and divine into no Mr. say or download the app no now the promo code no PK HMA on your first transaction or download notification memo extra bottle and I say first meal on the meet you come and that is extra bonus on top of the bonus in startup center may come from money busia for nyina no a fast, secure and reliable, and also no transaction no e be kama rate no e was so kama. The chat to crampo. When you'll be all controlling or financial in your amount, and also when it comes to life insurance, Ghana for be now will come say life insurance crap ye nibi. Say nyame fa samba or can if the say good boy na fi de busia eni nyina atoto mesra wo ye ntoto ya na moye because obi anim da da bone ne beba say ye nipa de ya wo ye nkwan de wo ye den ya mre bi beso obewu na wo a ema wo busuafo a aka wo chi ne so embre ntime kanfo Millicent owusu ema ko na ne ko di dwumadi na bibia nya kama media makoso ahwe me hu se eye enti wo so ko ya wo de beda ma se sabria yaka enu egu no na se bia yaka ne nyina wie no ye be ko na afedie ya ko hwe se bia a class bet me ama yen any quick update from Startup Center then if you on man afedie ye de dwumadi na hwase
For your mamuna majo, oh baby, but once again, say thank you very much. Said they be an so a time with Tata Sen HRTV SO every Monday 6 p.m. USA time. The best answer as you believe in the product startups and believe in us. Quick one update from Tata Sen. Say the moment when you back the rate at 2 page and so they will continue to make sure so the rate continue to go high and will continue to serve you the best. But we'll continue to also make sure to say we stay within the laws that governs the Bank of Ghana and also say the young cost be Emanukofa Assembly Emre no. And I'm also a motor customer services so any lapses be and we'll continue to make sure to say all those things will be set up and also have effective and smooth communication with the customer service, and also the product will continue to be more effective as they be adding. At the moment, I can say, you know, more landing. I've got a fair share of the Tata Sem wallets, and more your rich Musa and so USA and other parts of the world, where the Ghana corridor lies, and will soon be having the wallets in operation as well. In the moment, me for momre ekese, me dani ama piki, nese oma ye guess, so the topic, so adding a brain, edamasi.
a class that say sabre ye be koni ama Dr. Feelgood akwaba Feelgood aba akwaba
yeah anyway
now what you say ana ye di nkomo concerning how to raise our children in the diaspora. Ye did mo nkomo na topics ni questions bebre if you mobile. And we have to do a sequel of the original topic, which is how to discipline, our wards, in the diaspora. In Titia bebre ne bi mafem ewa Ghana when it comes to disciplinary actions, ye behwe say Ghana de ni ye de fa ha be fa da. Emfa so dia edin eni betimi ayama nkola no bibia aye kama. Se befa so dia kai aluta kontodo a ye de ato aso. Ebiom so no ye behwe say kromam se nkola ene Ghana nkola hwamu no maso wodin. Nti ye behwe say fida side hwamu no maso wodin. Na fe de ya just opposing ni mienu ni have de ya do to insanani na ya career hwe ye emodu na fe de measures a ye betimi da toto ho bibia ebe kama. The floor is yours.
Yo, uni ameda se etiefo na hwefo so me mamadwo esa mamo akwaba de ba and so adwumadi no. Said the PK Eka no yeah to our last week discussion so the challenges of raising kids in diaspora. And then they ever about the disciplinary part. I think said there's been some perceptions and some myths so abuchi akradi and all of that. And we better na yaka ho accept. And then we also look at some of the best ways and as a tested methods psychologists say okay, yes, it's the discipline and cry. But then I also say, as I always say with every presentation I do, especially with matters such as this, any one size fits all, right? Any one size fits all. And and yes, we say my way say never, yeah, my way so befa. And said the PK now can also the way I in the Ghana, so you are Hanoma, a bay yana. It's saying one size fits all into the fact is it worked in Ghana, no, does not necessarily mean say to work here because the environment and facilities of that are a bit different. And nobody bones so yes, yeah, Ghana, so you are so in it is perfectly okay. And those are some of the things we'll be looking at. Now, now your memory, I'm a busan sem. I know said there'll be a lot of questions into Metro. I said major MRP or a cheat now it me a busa and sebi. So now the first question that usually comes to mind, say about discipline. Yeah, not usually we're mistaking it for punishment. And as I say, we use it interchangeably, right? We use it interchangeably. So we will say, what is the difference between punishment and discipline? In this case, we're talking about disciplining kids in the diaspora. And what is the difference? Now, say I share psychology for different definitions. Now, one of it, which I would like to use for today's presentation, is that while punishment focuses on making a child suffer, right? That is the key thing. That is the focus of punishment. For breaking the rules, discipline is about teaching him or her how to make a better choice next time. And abra or in your view, or correct Accra, and I say or correct Obino. What is the motive behind it, right? And the motive will also impact the how. But I church and I do a church, a choir obefaswa obeyeno. And if punishment is to focus on making the child suffer there, and if you are just emitting something to the child with the focus, and as I said, with the aim, say, then at that point, it's just a mere punishment, right? But then if the focus is maybe teaching, and as if the focus is actually teaching about friends, say, the next time you say, and which comes with consequences, right? And if you are to do that with that focus now, then at that point we say we are disciplining the child. Therefore, the action may be the same, right? The action may be the same, but then the how and the intensity and the results now and they determine what really it is. So now, Musa said, what are some of the positives when it comes to discipline? Who said, as we said, punishment is to make the child or the person suffer. Esan the sense, in some cases, the entire punishment or punishment and it is also advised to say you have a one-on-one time with the person that you intended to discipline, right? And you have that one-on-one time with that person, which helps build relationship. So this is not just after Oniprakona yet, but it could also be before. When there's that relationship now, then should there be a discipline, I know that this person is doing out of love. And then also after the action of that individual, and so it is important to, in most cases, have that one-on-one time with the individual, debrief with the individual. Even on psychic, to say if we put someone in restraints and also say in seclusion room, we will say afterwards, you should have a debriefing with the individual and the team. And the goal is that you're able to talk through here so that everybody will have a good understanding. Also, so Abafana and I say, so we have to praise the positive so that I will say, okay, this person sees some good in me. But if it's always about the negative, and the negative, then it's like the who's about me and they said they me ye and so bibi so come for no say be so so correct now then they will see so okay at this point the me and no can because when I do something that is good you also praise me. Sometimes you hear some of the kids be like, oh, so aren't you proud of me? No, it's not that I'm not proud of you, but I'm not proud of the action. And I said no, and the come myself, and you wo as and I said nipeduano. So it is more of the instance and not the incident, and also it's important to set clear expectations. What are we looking at? What are we looking to achieve? Right? And say only abofra no honom na ebia school work and onya there should be some smart goals which is the specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and then time sensitive, right? With that, okay, say this semester and I said this term, these are the expectations. You finish with this and I should say me pacho embassy no mute my way. So setting clear expectations. It's now setting the grade expectation, setting expectation with the class, what you expect the person to achieve out of the class. I'll also say grade is not always a measure of success, right? It's the fact is all A's, necessarily does not mean so retaining. So you want to look deeper into that and see, is the person really get involved with the class or working and all of that, which would then translate to the grade for the most part. But everything is measured by just numbers and so on. Then value for which they are doing the omoya they may not see it, right? And then if you also see AABB, and you don't want the person to keep doing it now, distract creatively, right? And sometimes on Pacono pay cable boss so much, right? And as I say, and then maybe more afraid everybody is glued to their phone, tablet, or something. And there can come a point in time where you're like, okay, couldn't kujami wahasi. Until at that point, you're taking him or her away from the oil, without him or her even realizing. Till by the time we that program now is so stuck on not a trip. If you want to know, if you only know, I can say, this program that you're watching is not very educative, so try and change it. You know the time for that program, right? But then you come back and then he or she is still watching it. So what you can probably do is find something else to engage them around that time. And with any behavior, repetition creates enforcement. Abra or the new one over the period of time, no. So because I said what can no go so every measures have been put in place, but then what is the alternative? Then it will take him or her away from that. And I use calm consequences, right? This is a tough one for some of us based on our background and everything. And it was last week you shared and I said you move on my kasani, you raise your voice and yes, you but it's for emphasis, right? So using that calm consequences, and yet consequences beyond the bit my calmosa, depending on the magnitude of the only across right. If you want more bit me at the appropriate time, you have a very good conversation with him or her. And then they will have the understanding. Oh, Matthias, my name say. But once in the heat of the moment now, then you have to respond accordingly. But it has to be measured, where it is not for the person to suffer, but then for the person to learn lessons from what they have done, right? And for that reason, you have to pause at some point. We say one kasana. Put out that disciplinary measure. No, me pacho nyanto boase and maybe process it for a minute or a few seconds. And then maybe you'll be able to have better measures to put in place, right? And then you take a step back and also look at it. Yes, sir. Oh, I didn't know yes, sir. Why is this person? I don't want to talk about specific behaviors because it can apply to anything at all. But for understanding purposes, example, Abiana Onipakono on reading, right? On reading. And why non reading? Abiana the eyesight, but then you've not taken the time to really process it with him or her. Oh, and what to bonus on in the year, you may realize you say, oh, and then he had in trainer. Usually, the book comes in, it's some man into or struggles or bayana. Then the only thing as a child I will do, which makes sense, is not to baby, then I'll go look for something else which is more interesting. And then the attention span of kids right now too is relatively much shorter. And if you're engaging them in activities which require so much attention, and especially intensity, over a period of time, and channel say I'm bored. See, I mean, you say anthem for the case or something, I'm bored. So you might want to vary the activities that they do. Or you wake a cry, then you look for something else for them to do. Then you change it to something else, not my year, so that they stay engaged. But you bet my baby, I still they'll tell you say they are bored. So sometimes you give them a break for them to also do something of their choice, right? And then it goes back to the certain limits, Okay, obet me akwa diagram and obet me akwa show. But for 30 minutes, then you come back and then you read for 30 minutes. So the same energy that you put in this, you have to put in that one too, right? It is on person where you need 30 minutes, on show only 30 minutes. If not, then you have to. Meaning, Akrabia, he's so smart. He said, "Okay, so read or no any problem." But to say reading a different question. Or better no book, no, or better book, no pa. But you know, we said answer. Or better summarize them, but we reading book, no. Right? You ask me how could he summarize or pick some few keywords be or back a cabo, but more summary, no, it will make so much sense. But the book, no, part we're reading. Okay, so in some cases, you want them to write a summary that makes logical conclusion. That is how you know that yes, really no already. What's over my okay, summarize what you read. No more 2, 3 lines, 4 lines. You can tell that you don't read like 2, 3 chapters and then tell us that the summary is only 3 lines. It has to be more than that. And if you really want to know, if you want to test that part out, make sure that, and it's in most cases to maybe I also glance it through. Because who knew the work actually be a credit. It is what me glance it through, and then said there or catch on you can really assess and see say yes, it's really the content or not. And then the last week, Becca said, Roma said no, the school will go with them. Until the upper said, a cranny yebiano, I also on in the year, right? The upper so yebiano, I also on in the year. Ujaman Quadia, you may not get the intended results. So now, when it comes to discipline, there are some 4 C's which is involved: the choice, the consequences, the consistency, and the compassion, right? So choices. I know one man be or college. Now, he was having a discussion with his son, and the boy was making some choices via ne papa no approve of. And the papa ne catch and they said, yes, you do have your choice to make, right? But then also remember that I also have my choices to make. Sometimes they don't because they feel say me now therefore everything you have to do for me, right? But then yes, me will, and therefore I have that responsibility to also raise you right. And say me raise you not say we can discuss it. There's nothing wrong with that. But when you make your choice, also realize you say, I also have a choice. And to connect or permanence or balance, and also maybe exercise my choice, of how I want to help you or not help you, or how I want to spend my money or anything else. You can't blame me, say, I'm a co-buyer and I'm a papa and you no, you exercise your choice and I also exercise mine. But it's very important that these conversations are had at the beginning so that expectations as we talked about, are clear. You better discuss it, BBR. What you say are fine. What you say are fine. If yours make more sense, please go ahead, do it. But remember, I said, no choice, right? Then the consequences which lead into it. About why exercise with the remember that you're going to live with the consequences of whatever choices that you made. Okay? And you know, say, who choose say, it is your choice. Fair, fine. But the new 250 years no who kwachiwa and friend me say me bet you or die come out every month. Because every I'm so more choices be say me make a minimum the person be misika ye. Oh, and you know, yes, you live with your consequences. Make kasa and just say and you men or do not go and help the individual. But then let them know the consequences of what they've done. And sometimes makakranko neni ofili kakra afi de cheno. Then whatever help you have to help them, no, you do it, right? Once again, it may depend. And yet, be no bet me I so if it's an issue of life and death, life is at stake, then immediately you want to go to their help aid. And then after that, no, only more having that discussion, right? And be consistent. Be consistent. And yes, and then they have a leeway, then watching out to me yet, right? Then you get them confused. And you know, say 9 o'clock your bedtime, I let it be 9. Say weekends, no, extended time. I didn't know the weekends they were extended time. The Kobani say and they 8 or China 9, at the chair 10 p.m. Like what direction, what communication are you giving them? So it makes it a bit difficult. And the compassion part goes to the initial definition, right? Which is, you say, it is more so correct them from their behavior so that they can do something better the next time. Into I was said, you should be compassionate about it. Na enkoye ebufone or hane the ede opra ebeba, right? Then also there is the ABC model, right? The antecedents, what happened before, and then the behavior from that, and then the consequences. So you see the consequence, repeats again. And I always say this, you have your choice. I mean, no any problem. But remember, when you have your choice now, you live with the consequences, right? And and then they see it. Okay, then let's talk about it, right? So the antecedent led to the behavior that the person then the consequences is so by. But either way, you have to talk about it and then do it. Okay, now let's look at some customization to these models, right? People, and as a case especially, are very splitted. And they do that because they know that they have the mother and they have the father. In some cases where it's a blended family, they know that they may have the stepfather or the stepmother available, right? And always, it is like find a permasem more. And say the or man more no is the one that is perceived to say open asset. But then me pawasem pa nti na nyo maybe one so me pese obeye na chi na ankosi wi then you start blaming me, right? And these kids will test it, right? Whether consciously or unconsciously, they will test it. And you have to be very united in raising the kids. And yes, Anna, almost Anna, Baku Bizarre say, oh, daddy, can I do this? And I'm saying no. I say, okay, when mommy comes, I'll ask her. Right? And oh no, like why you're not getting that? Obisa no amana or nema mebo obisa. So in that case, you have to have that conversation so that mommy also is aware, and then there are some standards. And say, Ebane say, before I could get to mommy, let's say I can't be timid to rate a crap now because we all have that standards, mommy is already aware and will also most likely toe the same line, right? And in some instances, yes, in most cases, in some cases it may be, but in most cases, but one thing yes, mameno and na papa no fits into the behaviors of a mofrano just to show say as a mena medomo. Okay, and I always say sebi or by time be in his or her right mind will do anything to the detriment of Nema, right? And should it happen that a parent does something which you do not agree as a partner now, please find the right place and time to have that conversation with the partner. No? And yeah, one more friend, because then they know, say, okay, there's that division between the parents already. Then they will also play on it and feed into it, right? The other thing also is know your children. And you know, in terms of discipline, you know, the better work ama A may not work for B. I could be on watching a tablet, I only any shade. Obi on more than a time out, I only any shade because on one case isolated. In two cases also call time out and also better on him, is our best friend. It doesn't bother him or her. Obi also a tablet and a couple share them Felisa. Into Jiffy Sema, they will always find something that no couple man they know person. And you know, you have to know what's really like a to me not why. Okay. Not every form of discipline works for everyone. That is the point I'm trying to make. And yet one size fits all. And you know, you have to know that kid, you know, and then know what works. And it's also not true that you cannot discipline your kids or your children in the West. Now, people say, okay, what about the forms of discipline? And also, you're very in the day. And on America say, but I attach, you know, it's what is most important. Say teacher for, say police for, say medical officers, so said they people discipline their children in different shapes and forms. Without getting into any legal issues. But so so the prano. What I say? Or you're not the prano, and as you know the dini them, of course, then it's looked as a. There's one case about Fred police Emma Nema me because wabono. Okay, and there was no major injuries there. Now police in the bar no business or day. And or cardio, yeah. I want the police in the catch they say or catch any man they say on Sabuni in his presence. Right? It is discipline. There's also a case where a police was called and then he came. And the police was trying to make, you know, just as with anything, people use their interpretation also. So in this case, the police was trying to use his interpretation and say, then the mother asked a question. Which one is better fitted to raise my kids for me, the society or myself? And in this case, homophobia, say we all both the bad debia and that's what didn't them and I said that there's no that huge trauma related to the discipline that she was exercising on the kid, right? In the area of I said, which one is better fitted to raise my kids for me, the society or myself? So my tia boyfriend na or chinebio and then you end up in the jail system and all of that, right? And you know, I have that responsibility to make sure say me correcting in there so that he does not end up over there. And you know, we have to do it, but we have to be measured in how we do it. Once again, mentioned earlier, kids will always push limits. And in this case, you know, the difference between this one and what I said earlier about the split in this, in this case, you know, what can I really get away with, right? What can I really get away with? And you know, say if I'm supposed to sleep at 9 and then I push it to 9:30, next one cashier, next time I push it to 10, then maybe next time 10:30. If I am not supposed to be on my tablet around certain times, and I take it to next one cashier, then next time I say then I say for another time crowd. Oh, so my phone they say me the crash already them. Next time me the rush already them on no cashier. Then the next time I may be playing a game on it. And you know, kids will always push the limits. You know, for that reason, you have to set limits and enforce it. Me pacho na crab by bibia untuminye. Oh yeah, major tablet in a few but then you never take it. Into account so mommy the wake the onya hoshe. So anything that you say in terms of whether you're using it as a discipline or as certain limits or as part of their training, you know, when you do that, please make sure say it's something that you can follow up on. Because once you do that, then the kid knows to say you are all talk but no action. And then sometimes too, the kids may not see the bigger picture, despite the explanations that you give to them. For that reason, you have to also be very firm in what you're doing. me person already 2 books a day, and I also say you have to complete your assignment by this day. You have to do X, Y, or Z chores in the house, right? But why me? But then why not this person? But then why this? Okay. They may not understand the full picture, how it comes all together to make them a full being and a better person. But then, despite all the explanations, which means that you have to explain to them and have all that conversation with them. After doing all that, let's still know, or the bigger picture, then you have to still continue to enforce whatever measures you put in place to make sure that the kid is receiving what they have to receive. Now, in raising children, one guy once made the argument to say involving a third party in it, not quite to say I failed as a parent. I beg to differ, because we Ghanaians, especially, or Africans, we come from a place where it takes a village to raise a child. And it is the responsibility of all of us. But for some of us who are Christians, for our churches, say usually the pastor makes this announcement to say, all of that, right? So once I affirm that, I have that responsibility with a very good conscience to make sure say I'm helping in raising that abofrano. And you say why two then you fail it in your duties and in your responsibilities. Okay, that is one point. The other thing about seeking help from others, and they say, PK have walked a path, and PK may be a better person to explain it to Mebachewa, right? So it is important that I get PK in so that PK can have that conversation with Chewa. It is not that as a parent, I cannot talk to Chewa about it, or I'm relegating my duty and then pushing it on PK. That is not the point. But then that may be the reason why, because PK have walked that path and may have a better understanding. That is one. The other thing is, Chewa has a better, not better, a good relationship with someone in our circle, right? He has that respect for. Who's it? Obiawo the ferry fool. Menkasa on ferry and on boom, I no papa. But then there are certain things that crapone say Obiawo ferry ni bi wo ho no ma e ma ho pause at once, right? And if there is that person like that, when it gets that difficult, you can involve them. I remember certain instances where I've been called upon to go help with some of the youth. And I think I mentioned earlier, I work with the youth a lot. And, there are too many instances where we get those SOS calls and then we have to go talk to them and all that. And, it does not mean, say, the parent is failing or have failed. Not at all. Actually, it means that the parent is having a broader view and is reaching out for the help. Now, let's look at some final thing here. There are some benefits to the foster care system because when you're the parent to raise them and all of that. And I'm doing this with the intention that we know all the benefits of the foster care system. But let's look at some of the disadvantages also. Most cases that go through, and as I said, a good number of cases that goes through the foster care system endures an abuse, one or the other, right? And it could be emotional abuse, sexual abuse, physical abuse, all of that. And sometimes too, they are extorted. And these things happen through the foster care system. One of the places I work, right, we do have an adolescent unit, which means that under 18 for, and a good number of them that comes through for the psych unit, inpatient, are through the foster care system. And I also say broken homes. And it is very important. Minka said, as bad as it may be at home, because some homes are worse. But then if it is not that bad at home, then it's much better than the foster care system, right? And with all the abuse that they go through, it leads to trauma, which also leads to behavioral and mental health issues, right? Which also causes a lot of emotional damage to these individuals. And it can also lead to identity crisis and self-esteem and all. So as much as you can, raise your child at home, let's give the kids the best care that we can with a good intent and all. But please remember, I said you are always the parent. It does not cease. Now, I've had some patients who are very old, in their 60s, 70s, their parents are deceased and all of that. And then when you're doing the behavioral health assessments now, there are certain questions that we ask, and including abuse. And some of these older ones, will tell you, say, if I was punished enough, and I'm using their own words, if I was punished enough, maybe I would not have ended up this way, right? And when we want to hand out the kid gloves now, we may do that thinking, say, we're doing that out of love, but they may turn out to be worse that we wish for them or anything like that. The other thing also with having kids who are not well-mannered, not well-trained, and do not turn out well, no, and they say, you do not cease to have that responsibility as a parent, no matter how old you are, right? Tembiano, as a awofono or sa asudieno ewo omaso. You can tell me all you want that you don't care, but my brother, my sister, your blood is working somewhere. And Tembiano, there is that. Last, let me catch one of my social workers. He said we have to do this research. How many parents are depressed, because we work on a psych unit and sometimes we see patients at home. How many patients are depressed related to issues with their kids? Because I had to build this one out of jail and this one got shot because of that and all of that, right? So how many of those, are affecting or more mental health? Those that have kids and they are wayward. And how many mental health issues are we also receiving related to the fact is that omuninkra? Okay, that research is still ongoing, therefore I don't have the numbers. When I do at the appropriate time, I may be able to share with you. At this point, be the basic I say, and then we'll get to the Q&A.
All right, yeah, that's it. So what am I muting me? Yeah, that's it. So my good insights of everything that is going on. At this point, you can unmute yourself. If you have any questions, just ask. You better check your Facebook, YouTube to make sure that the questions are there. And please urge each and everyone say, Momba Modia na video. Momfa link them I'm bushing for now bushing for so and send and share no share Jubilee, especially those of us are your Ghana Sabria, your bush for a walk into it will be very good for us to do that. Man, I didn't even know see we're gonna come with a PowerPoint today. So all my questions done easier. Easier, my who said there's a question from Phineas. I'll say especially teenage kids, they are special cases. I wish Mr. Phineas can unmute himself and elaborate more on that. Special cases as in what? So Phineas, wait me, I'll share more. Special cases as in but again, you can unmute yourself and ask your questions. Any question that you have, please unmute yourself and ask the question. I mean call Facebook, na mean call share near also our Facebook. Okay, since more YouTube first, let me call YouTube first. Again, like I said, you can unmute yourself and ask your questions. And for it, with our question, will be okay.
But you also the moves as when yes and I quite to say either you understood it so much that you don't have questions or I confuse you so much that you don't know what to ask. Either way, you.
Sassy, Missy, I'm gonna call say hello. Sassy, in your comment, again, I'm pulling up. This was from my personal channel. I'm going to the HITV platform to see what we have there. No question at the moment. Let's go
Why
to
you do that,
Kai Debbie say, how does a child's environment and his or her natural being influence their behavior?
Okay, so as human beings, right, we form two main things that impact who we are: our genetics, which is our nature, and then our environment, which is our nature, the way we are nurtured, the way we are raised, right? So the nature versus nurture. So for the purpose of this question, I'll talk about the nurturing. Environment has a huge impact. There are certain conditions, now, it is proven that it is more in densely populated areas. Okay, and yes, our environment do have an impact. If you grow up in an environment where you have to fight for your survival, right, then that kind of behavior becomes part of you. And no matter where I go and live, there's always a piece of that. And he said, "Mini wo, me person me bo brodu bi adi, but say mini wo brodu bi so a, you have to like it is a bit chaotic. There's always fight. You always have to defend yourself and stuff like that. Me too, what's now even the most affluent neighborhood, Krampona, still, sir, may guarded kakra, sir, behavior no be warm kakra. And yes, it is huge. If you also area when everything is fed for. And when you are put in a circumstance where you have to fend for yourself, kakrebia, and also it becomes difficult for you, right? And there is that.
So there are many scenarios.
Yes.
Right. Let me read it for those of Omoti and
Okay.
Kai Debbie also say there are many scenarios where two people grow up under the same roof with the same parenting, yet their behaviors are completely different. What constitutes towards that? What constitutes to that? Now say I know the towards a cramp, it be a difference. It be a different still, regardless of being twins. No, go ahead.
Okay, Kadebi. Inti ebra ye kai edebi no. The thing that was about the nature, and then the nature, the genetical components of our being, versus the environmental. And yes, we may grow under the same roof and all of that. I may turn out to be a quiet person, impact argument and all of that, right? But there's some environmental component here. If I'm pushed, that you realize you say, okay, mini ano crampo na or ano crampo no, there was similarities in the So I'm making the point still on the environment. But Esa also say genetically obia different. Interfor crampo is different, right? Into the side genetic composition also may turn it out to be a bit different from the other person. Into the because say no kids are the same. Betima wo fia e man kwa ne wo mu obia ye shronko. Betima wo fia me man kwa ne wo mu obia ye shronko. It could be a measure. You realize that there are different people all together. Everyone man, you go out and the way say into nua penny. Yes, a nua pa, but also a different person. And I'm also a different person. But then there come a point I also say there's intersectionality be e wo mu. No na man who say okay, we are from the same home or we are from the same area. And as I gave the example last week, once again, because of the topic now, the way some people even talk, you can tell, say, fit this part of the country. And there's always that environmental part and there's always that genetic part.
As a classical example, that A class.
Example that woman say, Chidemu. That be before we go Kaidebi the other so I feel men than topic no. Me na be a host no. Uncle Jimmy, Chidemu, mini class difference near the end.
You were brought under the same roof. On Sunday morning, doctor a kind, take it from there.
Yeah, to say, I don't know, me person metias yet to say.
So I added that examples. Now I'm doing it.
Oh no, me the example them be okay, but we say for the purpose of more, I be emotion or montias here no mathematics scenario. Now system says yeah to say no almost be a class to say K to say no okay yeah they are all from the same root. What
okay, I'm saying when you see a kaka the class also double call kakra.
Sana who no one. Nia all classes is here no the A class but A class or double call na.
Me the man who na make.
Okay. Koka A class na be.
Uncle Jimmy, The one near who know or no bit media dance here.
Exactly.
Okay. The next question was, so which one turns out to have the most influence, nurture or nature, or is indifferent? It really depends, but the most one, the nature, no, right? Because how I really am, like I know you're me bosu. The nature part of the entity, the mommy. So if I'm to change my environment and everything now, I may learn new environment and I'll easily adapt. And to be said that my former new mana based on my environment, you know, I was most of them bio musa and as a peace and then I can say if I even move from certain neighborhoods, because now an affluent neighborhood. Of course, I can make the noise and talk so loud and all of that every time. But then once a while, with time, no, then I realized, so okay, I cannot continue to do this. Even the way we dress, right? Almost for your position right now, you can dress how you are dressing. But when your position changes now, you realize you say, no, at this point, it was a message. But in two months,
position is sikan is atare na ne
you know, I say on papa onye is senti also yeah. So most cabbage being bottom of is so that is true, right? Certain things will influence us or affect us. But to both a minipa binary there, if even per my position as a dress you still see baby a fiba. It will you know that always turns out to be more
But one thing I've also realized, you know, sometimes, you know, PK and A class here. I don't know if you want Kai Debbie now. Kai Debbie no only me why far na A class. Hey, I like the picture about Abia Obekenti yes 2024 soft life. Yeah, I did be high Abia no. Near church and near Koyenin. Key Mama, Key Mama, big shout outs to Key Mama all the way from New York when it comes to event protocolism, event organizationalism, event marketalizationism, and then and I say event promotelism. So not just say Key Mama or Debufwa. Phil, no, your course CNN program, you know, some years ago back, you know, now TikTok lady been.
Okay. What about video?
Yes.
Video.
Oh, okay. Yeah, to keep my that's say in there what Johnny we'll take keys from that. We'll keep mama take keys. So mama be bars back up. Anyways, I'll say environmental behavior. I think so that was in retrospect to what you were saying, right? Concerning nature.
Say maybe position be or dress a certain way na maybe on your juma no you can't wear like a jogging pants or stuff, so you have, or you cannot wear a bathing suit to a church. So sometimes people behavior, they behave according to their environment, but maybe I all say things that sometimes drive to mental health and the parental stress and stuff. No, I really like it. But the problem that minim said, maybe but the challenges that I wanted to bring, say, it's a taboo in our Black community because of stigmatization. No? When we are going through crisis, let's say the adults, you know, we tend to hide it. Then we drive it on the kids, and the kids feel the heat, and sometimes it has some effect on them. My question is, what are some of the things that we can do to minimize that?
Good question.
Okay. Yeah, that's a part. And let me give an example of the staircase. Once in most cases, you know, we're not like, you know, the superiors. It's, you know, everybody hits it on you. You feel so frustrated. So you come home, and then that is where you can exercise your cratchy powers, right? Then after the about good so and also so they tend to take the heat from what you remember and all the frustrations, and yet just a dream. Too many other things. It could be say you're going through some challenges. It could be financial. Anything related to you know buafu now I started so what do we do? I always say you first of all have to know what is causing what you are going through. In most cases, you know, maybe what my remote, right, and yet direct is that. And you know, so why I like an in-depth analysis of what you're going through and what is going on now. You may think it's oh, they see and they are but then it may have a remote cause. Into term be an international say and the akoso and the akoso. By that way, you know, we can see what the cause is, and then we can start addressing the cause, you know, right? So that is the first thing. When you address the cause now, then you take away the symptom. The other thing also is that once we get to know the symptom, then we have to do symptom management. So it will depend on what the symptoms are. As I said in the slide, you know, you might want to take a break, excuse yourself, process certain things before you speak, right? Once again, you have to know that you're doing things for the best of the family. And you know, you usually don't get any good results because at that point the mind is not processing right. You know, but I tell you what, if you even do it at the heat of the moment where your adrenaline is high and all of that now, and you know, though your pride will not let you know, but what you say, where the man right? You find reasons to justify why you did what you did at that point, but still, or conscious the choice that we were the entry. And you know, and many people on my it was a one you ne far by what is causing it. Then once we identify that, then we can deal with the symptoms, you know, near managing it.
Okay. Governor question and the ready. You banned the governor from commenting on this platform.
And you about how
you read MYA. But but what question be Mr. Keep on my Mr. What answer question I'm now.
Pacho normally question be sana send a be boa yenina
Got
because
you.
ye woman yenina ye mana stress no to the bia a bro yeso. Intino na ntimi bisa is for all intinyame so kaka mbeso so ne say take a break for a leisure and recreation break, and that's also help as you don't have to travel far but try to change your environment. For example, program in Virginia, if you have time, you just drive and just change your scenery, and that's also help the adults to de-stress these challenges we go through. Thank you.
Chief Market Damper. What those marketing Virginia program is simple.
Keep on my casano. All right. Busa so before another question now, unmute yourself now for the Busa to Facebook and I say Zoom and I say YouTube Busa with the exception of Governor. Governor has been banned today from asking any question. Aye. iPhone young call. iPhone sister iPhone.
Pacho, me sorry, ma'am. Me person me who say what would be the proper punishment for kids?
Me answer na.
Oh, let me take a step. I think that we had mentioned earlier, there are different ways of disciplining in cry, right? And as I said, and what will be the proper one will depend on Onipakro. Because the Abayama may not be good for the other one. My friend Borma, yena so belt near build my yabona or yeah, but in you know I be no affording this because when you say and we're building a resistance to it, right? Your course school and I obey late or you late at the abono. But be a nanya bofrane penny so be late. It's who the anti or later. kebet me abuano. And then I said we should always look at the root cause.
And then ya na nya abofra person obey late. Who go school no then until now then ya nya wo pe obi kidnap you. I will pay you late no.
Okay, obi ono ma on no sorry ko bu nsuo ma ne fie nyina. Right?
Who can say obey late to school, right? Me just so obey late so obey fie no why late. Okay, Mati was here. Ya na true.
Oh, there. So
e bi kra be ko efum kra and e bi no ya adwen.
And you know, there are some Aibu or Honoma, Ebia, on Crapo Nation in Yanunkuma. So there are too many reasons why a bit my band is saying we should always look at the root cause. That is the import of what I'm trying to say. And you know, since that they may change and they say there are different forms of disciplines. I will bet me a use. Share about friendly day to me no. Obi on my the tablet on your share. Obi on my the time out on your share. Wow, it's you know, Obiane ne dear. Try. O try o test baako mienu bi a obehu de etumi no na afi de why e wo mu aso adwa sesem because o year to aso once again o wa be used to nti o mu aso na wa sesem na wo hu de go.
Okay, governor say me mbusa o say only A class o say
all left a ban.
Oh, comment with the me read exceptional to the rule o say only A class why and a year. Governor question or no?
Or trying to say one A class. I guess it's all.
No. I say. So feel good the A class. Who be better?
Oh, it depends.
Okay, teacher. Mo say me hu nature nature no hey. Oh, nature ne fa hin no nature ne fa hin na. And I say bia obusa say kaneno and I say and I say and also so yeah another factor.
Yeah. Oh, Governor, it depends because who is better? No, like in the castle.
Oh, say you can disciplinary. Edu me there so that be feel yan kan ye. Edu me there so one ka say gina ne ka no. Or kind o sere ye.
Oh, I can give you my example. Governor, my example. I'm part of you to name my example now for the meeting. Because yes, that is difficult to say. Because we need a class in Yetiapa, and who is better?
No, perhaps that becomes one or do basic.
Oh, me WhatsApp message mo. Uncle Jimmy. Me WhatsApp message.
Uncle Jimmy, I'm say A class 3 na fukakra. Ti ase sese no de ni.
Enye ti pass them the eka wa ha o. Ye ka say when osi obi da keka, obi ye cool. Enti no governor buy no be ka say A class ASMA. Okay, cool, no problem. Ono wo say be buza say but A class they feel good. Who way better? It's a more answer question. I don't have the body in corner kick. Straight goal. Penalty ye to know.
It depends.
It depends on we are say the sun that contractor no this order HD I say contractor na nya there and na be for the need the pa.
If somebody wants
class bonus we actually nti na ma obi e ka bi
somebody wants somebody make a promote program, PK will do a better job than me. If you want to make somebody do mental health education, I'm better than him. If like say the tendency say may respond in the same measure no PK be pay back exactly as it is. Me so already here they come
but you can A class asem and me massive na you can woni A class.
I said no jira so I say chinchira me fa example me do so here.
In that A class na tio me di wachi me no anya no asem na you wodi the chi direct na asem na you say obi bo say mumie no nti ye be say hu interfon ne de no ke wa ye man hu say interfon the difference home nti woni direct no no te sen nti ye gap no de boa.
Okay, what the effort back to and the topic they discuss in terms of discipline, right? Okay. It will obi to say me any A class. Me say no come anymore, e come more. Right? It you know so what see me and also ye me and no come more. That will correct me more. A class and also the Charlie and quarter of you over. You know, no so
Okay, it's back to your question, Governor. Not just about A class, they feel good. Yes, A class, pop, and like What's
saying
our political convention? Like I said, my name is PK, and I endorse this message. I do endorse this. Many classes so also sometimes no. Unyine anya maybe sesante munya botre di pe bi won ma ye nyina anya maybe best ba ye class. Oh nya. Anyways, Kimama say, please, I will need you in the Bronx for mental health event. I'm in the email or feelgoodservices@gmail.com. Mr. Yeah, the email number to Jana if the or the number so to Jana for anyway. Yeah, I think the mumu say it my yana yentimin sir. Because I know say you guys Cecilia, oh question now. Cecilia, but your question better back as how. I think say me who Cecilia who's on a Cecilia iPhone.
Blink it real quick.
Yeah, until yeah, but ubetimi akasa if you have to. If everybody can unmute themselves and ask your question and talk. Okay. After the governor trying to trust one casa, we see the Senate here. Honorable Adams Salam, MP for New Edubiase Air share the day and day. Into the honorable Yaba Kwaba Eba HITV, Yatonka Aso Ache. And to be a political friends about to by a better politicians not random say na ye hun ye ekoso kamaka. Tina Berry so asresa, minim nenti Tina Berry esre. Ebia minim se Tina do on my side. Minim nenti a all stress no. Sabre no me show a question bia info to do na fe de ye nya sorry dwumede no so because I hired them. And I'm glad say
okay.
Go ahead.
Me pato
Uncle Jimmy.
Mr. Flo, I understand. Now we can be answer my clear. Discipline punishment. It's a difference, woman.
Yes.
Okay.
The difference once again is a punishment is for the person to suffer. Discipline is to correct the behavior, right? And for the person to do better next time. And you know that is the main difference between the two.
So are you saying, sir, back in school, your Ghana schools, where the teachers abusing the word punishment, and I said they really meant what they said by the word punishment?
I think it's been used interchangeably for a while. And some may use punishment, but then they're referring to discipline. And in most cases, I believe that is what it is.
In your opinion, do you think that Ghanaian schools are disciplining or they are punishing?
I think it was mostly discipline, but then in some cases turned out to be a punishment.
Okay. And what the kids go over, Kroman said in their schools, is that a form of punishment or discipline?
Sir, a timeout in this animal.
Timeout, told you to me cause suspension, this animal, I don't know.
So especially the idea again in Aniako. Maybe no crop or Mukobiwa. But Ebane said the more year wahase na, right? I think it's a environment to be any what works well for that environment. Okay. And I say yes, they've taken the kids and all of that away from the school system because it's some of the people that were supposed to use it, were abusing it. Right? And even in Ghana, they've taken it away from the school system officially. Let me add that. But then some of the results that we also see, and so match what the intent was. Example, they say, leave me alone, so I don't mind left alone. And right now, it's led to too many behaviors that we are not able to correct at certain stages. And some societies be on say, who say, baby, near copy near the aba. I always say there are certain things that is done in the West that, yes, they may have some ripple effect, but the magnitude, is not the same and will not be the same as in Ghana or some parts of Africa. Why? Because there are other structures in place to manage whatever the outcome of these, the fallout, of these measures they put in place, to manage it. In some parts of Africa, we don't have the extra structures to manage the fallout. And Tinubu said, then the outcome becomes worse. I don't know if what I'm saying makes sense. So in terms of discipline, right, they've taken away the canes and all of that because yes, some people are abusing it. But then there are other structures which will help to manage the fallout of the behaviors. They have good therapy system, they have good social services and all of that. But you need that structures now. And when that residual effect and now then after the agency we initiate to help manage it.
Okay. A very good one from Auntie Christie, but before we be able to, I cannot overlook Dan beautiful comments now or the bonus. A class is giving bonus at backstage. Not just say any politics and corruption, a woman, a basso say you behind that is also a man for suiting me corrupt. Danny that's say with me a year so that is a very good way of disciplining what is going on. Auntie Christie say, how does the recipient know whether is discipline or punishment? I think that's a very brilliant question. Me am here bombe no e better me hu because minimum obi a oswa na yetimika say obi an go twa aba mra enti ye ko twa aba ne ba na ye da teste wa wo de aba ne ba hwesa aba na de ba no de ba e bebu adembu enti me am dipa na oje sa aba na better no say we discipline and say a punishment.
The testing one is to test your faithfulness. What do I say? Because as you could try Barbara near for movie, it could try by any not just when you do cry. Yes, the test you also didn't cry.
It's why you test I know your punishment and I know your discipline.
And discipline because they want you to be very faithful in whatever things that you do.
Okay.
But that was sort of light. But on the serious note, to answer the question, right? How do you know? As I mentioned earlier, you have to have the conversation with that individual. Because there are times to me, a punish and I say to me, discipline was something, and you don't even know what you did wrong. Oh, man, say I may tell you so more as examples of my programs. So these are the major. But like there's one time where he did something, and then I of course I disciplined him on it. And said, do you know why like I had to beat you on this one? I said no. I said, but I didn't think I was going to get in trouble. So the thing is, he knew what he was doing was wrong, but he didn't think he was going to get in trouble. So now this is why you got in trouble, and this is why it was wrong. Then we have that conversation, and then you ask your questions. I'll take my time. I'll answer them. But there were consequences, so there, lo and behold,
and not all discipline is supposed to be in the form of say just like you said in your slide, you know, because the one my bit me popo ni actually even though Oka say they be Oka say be say no anya, it tends to be say planning for seriously. So don't like what they said in the military, you know, do not point your weapon at somebody if you're not ready to fire. So if you know say you're not ready to carry your friend to say out your words now, don't alter them, because once you alter them, you have to follow through. Maybe do you still have to follow through? And only another, I mean, basically, I think it comes with common sense. Just make the sound judgment in whatever decision that you make when it comes to that. You know? Okay.
And that is why it's also very important that you pause and then process before you give that warning. Oh, now correct to say, okay, then. And as you said, you know, there are too many different forms. I think I've mentioned the time and again. Okay. Too many different forms of discipline. So process and then use the right one. I'm saying,
Uncle Jimmy.
Oh,
sorry. And Uncle Jimmy, Mama. Uncle Jimmy, keep coming out.
And then a contribution, or the same answer you mentioned about environment, because me transfer in Scandinavian or Kakra. Now, me baha. We should need other Scandinavian countries by 7 o'clock. Let us by 7:38. You won't see a class on number 1 thing. Or feel not on bedroom. It be that from right time. Now, maybe Hannah, eco program be around 11 o'clock. Now, planning and 1 hour. Aha. Intimate madam for be fear na make us say. Now, Bobby 17 of dollar moment. If you want to coffee or Pomumiano. For me, some be come much as you go dantem. James environment no so count to say they work on. Yeah, but that's
Right. And even Chroma said, in most cases, in the winter time, they tend to be indoors and sleep early. Do summer, about 9 o'clock, now for no basketball, who feel you badges so 5 hours.
Okay, keep mama.
Yes, environment in the place.
Wait, keep mama. We are Mr. Walk, Pessoa Casabia, no, wait, mama, also, and I say, yeah, obey mama, it was on we have about 5 minutes to run up with the show, no. Keep mama, yetio.
Yo, not maybe discipline and punishment, no. Me send your brother kind, no, it's interchangeable. Into no, akrana ya you punish akrano instantly. That's my opinion. Ebi a bibi a oya okachen say mo nye oya me panel show because na esa na discipline in you because what chen say ABCD menye but like me nim say na make twino like
Remo Yagami.
onim say on penso no obeye nti oya me panel show obeji ne wo say oje na ye ka Ghana so the way na ye no wo Ghana no me feel say senya ye wo Ghana no ye mu bebra ye wo forum isu say no ye hwa mu me say aboa ye that discipline no aboa ye openi kasa uni so kasa faso ha no ye beka say ye ka Ghana no ne ye ka ya hye but hwe ha akwaya a yɛnka ne nhyɛ a mpanimfoɔ tena ase na ɔpanin ka na ɔno nso aka wobɛhu sɛ ɛto da bi a na agye nsɛm nti sɛnea yɛka no also ka sɛ PK common sense yes the common sense is necessary kurom ha nkwara no sesei no ɔmo agye nsɛm because the system has given them that upper hand and it has put fears in the parents, even some parents, to discipline their children.
Okay.
Or punish them in a way. Thank you.
But that's it. Feel good. Do you agree, sir? Kromam Senkula no as one den Sengan and Kolan.
Also, Maswa didn't say Ghana crowd. Depending on your page, you do two necessary. So back to the environment, right? It's do two because I have said no, they have only way so much in yes, certain behaviors need to be on my, especially for some of us from Africa. No, we feel that you guys are having a walk in the park, right? But then Ghana no, so next time I said this, she says so a dark emotion to never straight up. You guys must say. It's nipa nyina yepe and she share that hodom no ana me and crofo ya omuso ana America de edi share so there be say men di so a insusu aso ben na beba me so enti na force ma me di so but she said I mentioned earlier said we will always push limits enti no say other jurisdiction no say men di so a insusu aso ben na bas if there is no consequences then why would I
true me tena Ghana me hu se obi adwon so wo elevator mu anase stairs so da enso bronze normal common obi dru elevator mu stairs mu na adwon so bom gaga Jose but again
PK person brother beba bronze na me inviting now
na say baby oba no enti sa what you say me the baby ara me meti on New York ni dey different level what they say into no na me check dey say who do one ma who so hine beje but at the end of the day like he was saying people are not littering around because they said they are so abiding the law but just say consequence never bad with $500 na e bia jail time no into no being person be litter around but Ghana so no they part of 500 ne wan and now police in the crap now no be enforce law no crano no bia crano no so equally the same thing into at the end of the day no imra ne bi wonom na enye adwuma be bi o ye adwuma but so ka so be force so be force pa bo say yes imra wo Ghana so be ka so be force ya wa so be share off
I
for young call Sunny upon we the way you're looking to me so
Pacho they're not Kima Mekano Me wo ba girl she is 12 years. We're very smart. Na o kasa ba no aka be 5. When ya no sanya saso ne di training wo Ghana. Ya na ya ma homete. See your Africans mu a, your especially Ghana for mu a. Na u feel bad as if say we antiti ni ye. But your mrofo mu a omo hu ne say we very intelligent. The way o kasa ne ade nti ya na mama you
We're
confused.
confident.
It feel good me pacho almost like confident. They all gifted and talented kids when in school. We're very smart. That's all can some feel too much.
But
Diana me
I
advice.
from before I feel good, but my question now. Who's one out to saying?
And I remember missing a miss number.
And
Me
your
yeah no dear,
cotton
but I
one,
say
ma.
at least once a Ghana
Therefore, that's the
yeah
top
no
of
yet
the
yeah
street.
Remember yet yeah at least now only the limits.
And
Oh.
yet, Tiana.
Me buy the only the limits. Me tiano pa so. I tell you, I do Ghana for man no ama wafer. Intimacy or mommy advice why me that's.
Okay, me pacho and fair, right? And then Japan say we sometimes confuse
Arrogance.
confidence with arrogance,
Yes.
right? It's everyone my out of their confidence. Your youth be a say she and say yeah, but could be no chome. And the okay be answer the question like she knows her stuff, and she always want to answer. It's me colleague back oh yeah, I tell that catch say you did embrace of me for akasa. Oh, it's for some of them no, it is really just out of the know-how. Somebody said your call cannot. And yen answer some man ke hard drink kese. Anna went to interject and is she invited into the conversation? So more have a conversation and she's included in yeah, and she's part of it. But you don't want her to also dominate it. Until you just have to let her know why. And I always say with every Ibiano, who say about the discipline and punishment, you have to let them know why you are disciplining them. So in this case, you have to let them know the importance of managing when and how and where she talks. What do I say? Because so it is important that sometimes you manage that. I think it's come up a couple of times. Say the teenagers. And into this slide we also saw that this is for a different presentation. This is like a middle slide. It may not make sense to some of us because we don't have the background to it. But then the point I was trying to make is that when kids get to the ages of 30,
Phil,
yeah.
Before I be calling, Obeji na media no so account no answer no account. I say when is answer iPhone, sister iPhone there no.
Yes, and previous ones be a buy.
Okay. And who you ya na media no. E be kana we cry answer na we question no. Yanko.
Okay. So who's the point two? No, I said they become rebellious as they do not want to fit into the status quo, right? So the status quo here is that, and this is Eric's theory when it comes to stages in life, right? And that is where I'm taking this from. So the status quo, they say, me now for whom me say me say, but then we so me whom say I'm not that. Therefore, there is that rebellion not from them. Into no person me yet be. You want me to be this person, and I am this person. So this is the stage where they identify who they are, and at that stage, it always creates confusion. It always creates problem between them and their parents. And internet most of the time, and crowded do teenage years now, parents heads because at that point they really identify this. So that kid now. No kwaya krapa on kasa baby on pen was and then edu sabre and after was starting to set here. Therefore, you have to navigate it very well, right? And if they don't identify who they are, then it leads to real confusion, where it leads to different problems. Okay, Auntie Naomi.
Mpamocho mamunya German day good morning.
Yeah, Joseph.
Good morning.
Meso me say
Until I'm the Kafan to trace you. Oh, Emma.
Onga.
Okay, I feel that chunka.
Omudru baby a yana omo pese omo ekasa. Say for example say me masi omo swaketwa no na ma kire wo say panyimu kasa enkasa bi. Se udru na say mpanifo na ekasa na nye wo age group na untumi nye den enka bi. Enti se me ma me no mu pie na ye kasa kra na omo nka bi. Omo ye din na omo tewo. Omo titwi ni pa enso omo nka na omo to baby. Enti ya na eye for the beginning no enkwala no de ye de ehye omo ase se de ye maami wo kasa no wo Ghana no na tsasa na no ote no kasa na wo de ye tia no ye ma na ye wo ma brucha ye mfa saade no enhye omo aso se mpanifo kasa unni right se wo kan bi se ya mfa saade na anhye omo ase de a ene udru Ghana fomu a obegu enu ase de bia ama Ghana fo no akase akra no ha adwene enso na enye adwene no okọ school a de eche ne se bibia ani a utumi kasa even akra ko school kra na bibi ni wa mpagya ne nsa kra na ana wantumi anka bia eno nso ye se German ha de beka se oye ti se mijimi on intino me man de me de show mo se idru nipa mu a yedin ne tie de omo kan enyia no di mestre se ye man ye wo mo a for the beginning once ya na mo hon de minim once mo de brofo na ebi kura ma no Ghana ni to Ghana ni ba ontumi nkatwi brofo na but me Germany an me kiro mo se me woka menyi wa no fi na na me de be kiro enti edru ba bi a metumi ebo mani kire akwala no mo ye den uhunu se how ni right how right nti mestre se ya ye man ye wo fi a mayen ka se abrochire de ye de sa ye koduru Ghana fonu ma ye nimbe gu ase nti
Okay.
meso kakra metumi aka no.
I think say it was a more of contribution. Why? It's not me that was say. That was say. Phil, what be kafa one? And me read the last two comments in I am sorry so.
The anti-kind, it is very true. But Sebio, the fact is that Sister Sobano, Ekasa more, what the Padudomuno does not mean say maybe I want church and people turn out differently despite the year of the Bemomo. And really knows no, and you that is why I struggle to really get it. And you per se. It is just that culturally is not inept, but especially said the Oka no the Oka. But the only thing is, are they part of the conversation? If they are part of it and they are contributing, it's perfectly fine. But and I'm just saying, once again to the why. You just don't interject when people are talking, or you just don't join conversations when you are not part of it. Into no money who is then it to guide their utterances wherever they are.
All right. Yeah, that was it. Kofi Yesu say.
Pacho, let me kasa last one.
There be me Pacho to me kasa last one. But that's it, baby. Governor, go ahead.
So I think that you guys are doing a very good job. Team, you just keep doing what you're doing now. More educated, yeah, public can be brave. My final one of your kind of Bonya Chana Mekai. I was just referring to first say. Texting the dia, texting the dia.
It was your for Governor to you. Governor to
But I must be brave. They're good. A boy in a way. Just keep doing what you're doing. But you
go explain, Taya.
What class them teacher mama?
You go explain, Taya.
You want make I explain Taya?
Proverbs, Kofi Yesu say Proverbs 30:24, and I read. Also, whoever spurs the rod hates his son, but he who loves him is diligent to discipline him. Those who spare the rod of discipline hate their children. Those who love their children care enough to discipline them. A refusal to correct is a refusal to love. Love your children by disciplining them. we if you could feel so and an iPhone every choice. Please, should you always infringe paying to correct? I do not agree. CPS
no, you do not always have to. Oh, sorry, what was it?
Okay, because the CPS for Babes wow.
You do not always have to infringe pay, right? But then here's the thing too: there are different forms of pay. So there are emotional pain. Oh, tell me, we're thinking about the physical part because I didn't hear. But then I always say emotional damage is more difficult than the physical damage, right? And either pain yes, you do not always have to infringe pain. It is more so for you to get the message across. And I think the qualifying word is always. So therefore, the answer is no.
Okay.
To Kofi, yes, we did. Now that is a whole theory, theological presentation on its own. But to summarize, who said the rod, near the car in your eyes, okay? And what who say you can so pay no? And you can be near the abandoned in your and as we shepherd them, okay? It's usually or more they shepherd et me et nekeke and then they follow. Oma no their promo and then they follow. Oma no their yeah na say asodi bi ababakumu a no their bonnet to no nsa no. Was o je kwe ba ko no turn into shape, okay? And that spread the rod and spoil the child and they're using the rod to correct and all of that. And yes, it's true. But then it is not to imply that but that was on a lighter note. But on a more serious note, it is not for that no. And yes, it is more so for the correction and guidance.
Oh, a key iPhone say you're blocking on. Now I don't know who type a message if you are blocking one. Also, please, you block me. Can someone contact me with my number, which is... I'm confused. Let me say if this is for the show. Because okay, if you are typing, that means you are not blocked. Or message now by your kind. If you have to unmute yourself and ask your question now. And yes, yeah, Phil, Mr. Final words. Nah, yeah, sorry, Jimmy, so. Oh, Netata. It could be in it. We're gonna get that right now. Okay, I think Matthew was here. Matthew, communication is very important too. All right, Phil, wrap it up.
Okay, so to wrap up this presentation, since a continuation from last week, I'll bring some of those in. Raising our kids in diaspora and also disciplining them in diaspora. They have their challenges for the mere fact that they deal with different cultures, right? Or a Ghanaian or a German, and or a European, dealing with all that difficulties. And we have to help them navigate that difficulties in Nijina. The other thing also is that as we raise our kids, discipline and discipline is part of it, not necessarily punishment. And therefore, one may ask, what's the difference? Punishment, we've learned, is that it is used to inflict, like to make someone suffer, right? That is punishment, and usually that's the intent. But then with discipline, it is correct and have somebody do something better the next time. And, discipline is part of it. Yes, we should not spare the rod, but the rod is not always to hit, it is to direct. And in directing, we'll get them to where we want them to be. I believe, I'm not there yet, but I believe is that the pride of a parent is to see their kids turn out to be good, right? You say, abuano nefe ene nentakra. Inti notice man na omi wune omo amuma ni nyina ne say akra na ba beye penny pebi o society no contribute ye. Inti tell me ana me benu. I can't remember say this is my very final one. I can't remember I said my father or one person that I was say he's very proud of his case because my mom also is, but or one that anywhere that he stands, he will mention a Juma all year, maybe I could with actual history of all 7 within 30 minutes of a more rundown. It is because it's and not to toot any horn, but it's because it's at least Nyamiado obi ejine ye. Kasebe ke ye na ka obeli we wo jail now or the way ko hana tembi o chesi we ya I think say it would have been different. So that is the goal, and we pray say everybody's turns out to be that way. That's it. I most of government but me do this.
All right, yeah, that's Ebusia for Diaco Sia NEPT. I'm say and ebre ema kwan ema etimi di dwumede no eba ye ebema A class assigning out feel good na fe dey we are yeah the Q&A session with Tata Sen. Any questions will be our with Tata Sen and aba na fe dey aswe dwumede so A class